Hello everyone. Today we will learn about the respiratory system. So, before learning about the respiratory system, the first question that comes to mind is what is respiration? Respiration is a chemical process of releasing energy by breaking down glucose for carrying out life processes. So, as it is given in the definition, it is a chemical process. Why it is a chemical process? Because glucose breaks down by utilizing oxygen. That means there is a chemical reaction taking place over there. So it is a chemical process of releasing energy, because one of the product is energy, by breaking down the glucose for carrying out life processes. So if you see the chemical reaction of respiration, C6H12O6, that is the glucose, plus 6O2 oxygen gives 6CO2 plus 6H2O plus energy. Now this is a balanced chemical equation of respiration. So if they ask you to write the reaction of respiration, you will have to write this reaction only. Now, I told you that respiration is the process that gives us energy. Why this energy is needed by us? As it is given in the definition, for carrying out the various metabolic activities in our body, various life processes in our body, we need energy. Now, in the products, along with energy, there are other two products also. If you observe the reaction, that is carbon dioxide and water. What happens to this carbon dioxide and water? Carbon dioxide is a waste product in our body, so it will be exhaled out from the lungs, and water will be recycled. Now, glucose should be break down into energy. Now, from where do we get this glucose from? From the food that we eat, from the nutrients in the food. Okay, so mainly the carbon dioxide, but in animals like flesh eating animals, protein will be the main nutrient. So protein only will give the glucose. So next we will learn about 5 important points about this chemical reaction in respiration. So first thing is, it yields energy inside the cells. It is also called as cellular respiration or tissue respiration, as it takes place inside the cells. Breakdown of glucose is not a single step. It is a series of chemical steps takes place in the breakdown of glucose. Mainly 2 steps will take place, which are divided further into various steps. That is not needed now. We will just learn about the 2 important steps of respiration. First one is the glycolysis. It takes place in the cytoplasm. In this glycolysis process, glucose breaks into pyruvate. Now, the second thing is Krebs cycle. This takes place in the mitochondria. The pyruvate further breaks down into carbon dioxide, water, and energy. So, energy is released in the mitochondria. So, mitochondria is called the energy currency of the cell. The powerhouse of the cell. ATP is called the energy currency, that we will learn later. Each step in the breakdown process occurs due to a particular enzyme. So I told you there will be a series of chemical steps taking place. So each step occurs due to a particular enzyme. Energy is released in 2 types. One is the ATP, which is called the adenosine triphosphate, and the second thing is in the form of heat. This ATP will be utilized by our body for carrying out the metabolic activities, and the heat will be used by the warm-blooded animals to keep the body warm. Animals need more energy than plants. Why is that? Because animals will do more physical work than plants. Animals will move about, chew their food, take care of the young ones, and so animals require more energy than plants. In the cold environment, shivering and clattering of teeth takes place. You might have observed it. When it is so cold outside, you will be shivering and the teeth will be clattering. That is an emergency activity of the muscle cells to keep the body warm. Now, the glucose will be released by the respiration. So glucose will be used by respiration, and this excess of glucose will be stored in the liver in the form of glycogen. And when you are starving or when you need more energy, this glycogen will be again reconverted into glucose to release energy. Now, there are two types of respiration: aerobic respiration and anaerobic respiration. So aerobic respiration means, as the name itself suggests, it takes place in the presence of oxygen. It is also called as oxybiotic respiration. And the opposite to this is the anaerobic respiration, which takes place in the absence of oxygen. There are other differences of the aerobic and anaerobic respiration which I will be saying now. Aerobic respiration proceeds in the presence of oxygen. Anaerobic respiration proceeds without using oxygen. In aerobic respiration, complete breakdown of glucose takes place. In anaerobic respiration, incomplete breakdown of glucose takes place. End products in aerobic respiration are carbon dioxide and water. In anaerobic respiration, end product is lactic acid. Energy liberated in large quantity in case of aerobic respiration. Energy is liberated in small quantity in case of anaerobic respiration. Aerobic respiration occurs normally throughout life. Anaerobic respiration occurs temporarily for short periods. Along with these, we should also note the differences between anaerobic respiration in plants and anaerobic respiration in animals. But before that, you remember that aerobic respiration in plants and animals is the same. But anaerobic respiration has certain differences. Let's see them. Anaerobic respiration in plants. Products of glucose are ethanol and carbon dioxide. Anaerobic respiration in animals. Product of glucose is lactic acid and no carbon dioxide. Anaerobic respiration in plants release more heat energy, and anaerobic respiration in animals release less heat energy. In anaerobic respiration in plants, carbon dioxide released causes foaming. Foaming is nothing but the bubble formation, but in the anaerobic respiration in animals, no carbon dioxide is released, so no foaming. Now let's see to the chemical reaction of aerobic respiration and anaerobic respiration. Aerobic respiration. C6H12O6 plus 6O2 gives 6CO2 plus 6H2O plus 686 kilocalories or mole energy. Anaerobic respiration. C6H12O6 gives lactic acid plus 2 ATP plus heat energy. One more important point you should remember is that aerobic respiration takes place throughout the whole life and anaerobic respiration takes place only for temporary period of time. Why this anaerobic respiration cannot continue for long time? Because the lactic acid released during the anaerobic respiration is toxic for the skeletal muscles. It causes tiredness to the muscles. So the accumulation of lactic acid is not good for our body. Now we will learn about the parts of respiration, which is the very important concept. So there are four major parts of respiration: breathing, gaseous transport, tissue respiration and cellular respiration. Now let's see each one of them in detail. Breathing. It is a physical process in which air is taken in and forced out by the lungs. So this is the process that helps us to take in the oxygen and give out the carbon dioxide. So the oxygen which is absorbed by the blood in the lungs is carried by the RBCs, that is the red blood cells, as oxyhemoglobin throughout the body by means of arteries. Carbon dioxide is transported from the tissues to the lungs because carbon dioxide should be exhaled out through the lungs because it has no other purpose in our body. So it is transported from the tissues to the lungs in three ways. As bicarbonates, 90% of the carbon dioxide is transported. In the dissolved form, 5% is transported, and one more part is from the carbaminohemoglobin, 5% of carbon dioxide is transported. Now, I told you that 90% of the carbon dioxide is liberated in the form of bicarbonate. It is carried out by the RBCs, but how is it carried out? Water and carbon dioxide gets converted into carbonic acid with the help of enzyme. This carbonic acid is further converted to bicarbonate. In this way, RBCs carry the carbon dioxide in the form of bicarbonates. Once the RBC reaches the lungs, the bicarbonate is reconverted into carbon dioxide and exhaled out. Now, how is it carried in the form of carbaminohemoglobin? Amino end of hemoglobin carries carbon dioxide and gets converted into carbaminohemoglobin. This carbaminohemoglobin is transported from tissues to lungs. Once it reaches the lungs, it liberates the carbon dioxide out. The carbon dioxide is also transported in the dissolved form. In this form, carbon dioxide dissolves directly and it releases to the lungs through blood. Respiration is also called as tissue respiration or cellular respiration because the respiration takes place inside the cells or tissues. So, collection of cells is nothing but the tissues. Tissue respiration delivers oxygen from capillaries to tissues. Capillaries is nothing but the blood vessels which consists of RBCs and WBCs. This oxygen is delivered in two steps. First step, oxygen is picked up by the hemoglobin from the lungs. Second step, this oxygen is carried by the capillaries to the lungs. Now, let's look into the cellular respiration, which is almost similar to the tissue respiration. The process in which chemical changes takes place inside the cells during respiration is called cellular respiration. It is a chemical process in which glucose breaks down and releases energy. Now, let's look into the one more important concept in this chapter, that is the respiratory organs. So, there are various respiratory organs like nose, pharynx, larynx, trachea, bronchi and lungs. Let's study about each of them in detail. First, let's learn about the nose. The external part of the nose bears two nostrils separated by a cartilaginous septum. The hairs present in the nostrils prevent large particles from entering the system. The two nostrils open into a chamber of nasal chambers. What are the functions of these nasal chambers? These chambers warm the air as it passes, adds moisture to the air, and mucus secretions traps harmful particles. An important function of nose is to smell. In the top of the nasal chambers, a small pocket-like substance is present. It consists of sensory organs of smell. It consists of small nerves called the smell nerves. It is also called as olfactory nerves. It receives odor from a particular food and passes that message to the olfactory bulb. From the olfactory bulb, it reaches to the brain. Nasal chamber opens into a wide cavity called pharynx. Now let's learn about the pharynx. It is a common passage for both digestive system and respiratory system. Pharynx is divided into two tubes called the esophagus or the food tube and trachea or the windpipe. On the top of trachea, there is one more part called epiglottis. This epiglottis blocks the respiratory part when the food is getting swallowed, because the food should go inside the food pipe, and if it goes inside the trachea, it directly goes into the lungs, and that can cause serious damage. Now, let's learn about the next part of the respiratory system, that is the larynx, also called as voice box or Adam's apple. Larynx is a hollow cartilaginous structure. It consists of two filamentous folds called vocal cords. Sound is produced due to the vibrations of the vocal cords. Now, let's learn about the next part, that is the trachea, also called as windpipe, because when we exhale the air, it goes into the windpipe. Trachea emerges from the larynx. C-shaped cartilaginous rings surrounds the trachea and gives flexibility. Trachea covers the thyroid gland, a gland which secretes an hormone called thyroxine. It helps in certain metabolic activities of our body. Now let's learn about the next part, that is the bronchi. So as you are seeing in the picture, the bronchi is divided into two bronchus, right bronchus and left bronchus. This bronchus is further divided into secondary bronchi, which further divide into tertiary bronchi. This tertiary bronchi further divides into bronchioles. By repeated branching, the bronchioles ultimately end in a cluster of tiny air chambers called the air sacs or alveoli. 700 million alveoli is present in the lungs. Alveoli is the part where the gaseous exchange takes place. There are two main reasons why the gaseous exchange takes place in the alveoli. First reason, alveoli is surrounded with the blood capillaries, and the second reason, cell walls of alveoli are very thin. This facilitates the gaseous exchange. Now, how this gaseous exchange takes place in alveoli? Deoxygenated blood, that is the carbon dioxide filled blood, is carried by the pulmonary artery and diffuses the carbon dioxide through the thin wall of alveolus. Remember, pulmonary artery is the only artery which contains the deoxygenated blood. Now, this carbon dioxide goes out during exhalation. That blood, after the removal of carbon dioxide, oxygen enters it from the alveolus through the thin wall of capillary. This oxygen-filled blood passes through the pulmonary vein. Again, you should remember that pulmonary vein is the only vein that carries oxygenated blood. Now, let's learn about the lungs. Lungs are the pair of spongy and elastic organs. Left lung is smaller than the right lung because heart will accommodate in between. Lungs has a large surface area because of the clusters of alveoli present in the end. Membranes of lungs. Lungs is mainly divided into two membranes, inner visceral membrane and outer parietal membrane. Between the inner membrane and outer membrane, there is a fluid called pleural fluid. Pleural fluid provides lubrication for the expansion and contraction of lungs. Now, let's learn about the respiratory cycle. Respiratory cycle is divided into two parts called the inhalation and exhalation. Process of inhalation. Now, when the inhalation takes place, there will be several steps taking place in our body. Increase in the size of thoracic cavity, contraction of diaphragm. Diaphragm is a muscular organ which separates abdominal cavity and chest cavity. ribs move upwards, chest expands because air has to be filled inside. When the chest expands, the pressure decreases, and due to this, the air enters inside. Now, the process of exhalation. It is opposite to the process of inhalation. Decrease in the size of thoracic cavity, diaphragm gets relaxed, ribs move inwards, chest contracts because the pressure increases and air expels out. So this is about the respiratory system. I hope you understood this lesson very clearly. If you have any doubts regarding this chapter, then you can comment it down below. So I will definitely reply to you. I hope you understood this, friends. Thank you so much for watching right till the end. Keep watching, stay tuned. For more updates, subscribe to our channel and press the bell icon right next to the subscribe button to get the notifications of all our other videos. Thank you.